Child's Play was released in 1988 and it stars Brad Dourif as Charles Lee Ray, a serial killer known as the Lakeshore Strangler, who transfers his soul into a doll as he's lying down on his deathbed after being shot at by a police officer while chasing him on foot. But little does Charles Lee Ray know that he's being used as a birthday gift for a little boy named Andy Barkley. And now he has to tell Andy that he is really not a toy, but a serial killer trapped inside of a doll. But also, Charles Lee Ray doesn't even know that he himself will turn into a human inside the doll the more times he stays in it. In order to get out, he has to transfer his soul into Andy's body, because he was the first person he saw, and revealed his secret. Now, this was a pretty silly setup, and it's kind of silly in its execution and goofy in some ways, but the story takes itself seriously, like most supernatural and serial killer movies do. But Wadami and Simi did do this. He did come up with the concept, but he had a couple of writers help him out with the screenplay. And also there was a director by the name of Tom Holland. No, not that guy, dummies. This is the Tom Holland before that Tom Holland was even born, and ironically was born the same year as me. Very strange. But cool. But that Tom Holland created the original Fright Night. Now I haven't seen that, but I have seen and heard about the remake. But I'm gonna check on both of those one of those days. So yeah, this was very different in the time when slasher films became popular because of Halloween. We first had guys in masks, but then we had killers that actually showed their face, like Freddy Krueger. And I think Pinhead was one of them. I don't know if that was from the same decade, but it was a different time in slasher flicks when they didn't have to show the mask. Chucky was one of them. This was very different, and this was around the time when everybody was using animatronics, and we still use animatronics in puppetry to this day. But there are times where they had to have little people in the costumes and the mask. No, I'm not kidding. There are a couple of times when there's a little person wearing Chucky from head to toe. Yep, zoom in on those images and you know that's not the animatronic. It's kind of like E.T. in a way, where they did have a puppet and an animatronic outside, but then there were people operating it while they're in the suit. Like always dwarf people, but then there was someone operating the fingers. Yeah, I haven't touched upon that, but I'm going to be doing that one too. I got so much stuff and so less time to do it. So I'm going to be doing it a different time. But back to the animatronic on Chucky. It's a little janky, the lips kinda don't match up with Brad Dourif's voice. And yeah, Brad Dourif does do his dangness to do the character in the voiceover studio and contrasting his personality to us. There were some times where the story begins to take a little bit of a slow point, but the story is like 82 minutes or 85 minutes. But it does have its mystery side, because there is a point where the adults don't know that this doll's alive and is possessed by a killer. And it does take a moment for the detective to catch up with the mother of the main character, or the supposed main character, because, well, he technically is the main character, but Chucky's the secondary main character. But the mother does have more screen time, and that's played by Catherine Hicks from Star Trek. She's also pretty great in this, and so is Alex Vincent, the guy who plays Andy. And sometimes he stumbles on his lines, but hey, he was a kid. We all would have stumbled at some point in our lives. Now, this is just me But when I first saw this, when I was very young, I was like 9 or maybe 10, maybe 8. But there was when I kept hearing about this and catching this on TV, I always think that Andy Barkley in this, who is the alternate dimension of the Andy in Toy Story, who is not aware that his toys are alive and are gonna kill him or possess him. My mind was weird that way, and it still is. The story is kind of basic mystery, who done it, building up, gotta stop him at one point. But the climax does drag on for a little too long where it should have ended, but it's kind of what they would want to do in most slasher films. But it feels a little pointless, but it does bring some entertainment value and it's fun and suspense for it. So I think that makes up for it. I'm not gonna give it away. Though there was one moment from the very last scene that feels like it's shouldn't have been in there. It just feels like sequel bait that most people do and probably shouldn't, because it felt like a self-contained ending. Unlike most slasher flicks and other films in general that just want to have a final jump scare. Why did I say other films in general? Because this is a horror film. They can have a jump scare for a final act if they want. Child's Play gets 4 stars. It's goofy, but also suspenseful and scary at times. If you find the concept of a killer doll being possessed by a killer very goofy, but also have some freshness and fun value, then you're probably going to enjoy this. But if you don't like dolls in general, you're not going to like this, because some dolls can look creepy, like the Teddy Ruxpin. Anybody remember those? Leave your opinion about that in the comments and let me know if you ever heard about Teddy Ruxpin in your life. And don't worry, there's plenty more reviews on the way, so click back, and I'm going to be talking about Child's Play 2 very soon. Here's a full look at that shirt. This probably gave you a clue. Do I have to be a Marvel movie by now?